Convening the meeting of the Jamaica Selectboard for July 27th. It's now 7 o'clock. And the first item, as we usually put on there, is just any updates or changes to the agenda. I did have a few, but I'll entertain if anybody else had any first.
I apologize, meeting. I did want to update everyone on the wireless hotspots that were installed last weekend in town. So.
Okay, I'm going to put that down near the bottom, if that sounds okay.
Can we put it right? Why don't I talk right after Chris?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
2-minute conversation.
Yeah.
I just want to explain what it is and how it works. And
yep, that's those that go together.
Perfect. Thank you.
I got one, Greg.
Yes, Andy.
First time ever. Just a little brief description about what the Sheriff's Department liaison is. That's it.
Okay.
Take a couple seconds.
I will put that down. Do we want to put that close to Jamaica Pikes Falls? The Pikes Falls?
Whatever the chair's pleasure.
Okay. I'll put it in. I'll put it in there. 9A. The other ones that I had was for John to give just a quick little update on the proceedings for the sign ordinance and the signs in town. I put that down also as I had that in as a 7A, I guess, if we want to call it that. I did want to give a quick little update regarding some discussions I've been having with regard to the health officer. Just a quick comments. I put that down at the bottom. And then Bob had mentioned, and we'll put this down at, there's some updates that he wants to bring forward regarding some things that were on the agenda last week that I missed for the fire department. And the other was I was going to propose moving Mr. Simmons up a little bit in the order to bump ahead up into number 4 or number 5. Just one to make it all official. So anything else? Okay, thank you, everyone. First item on, oh, actually, there was one additional one. We did have an emergency meeting, so I'd like to put that out there as to approve the minutes from our July 17th meeting also. So the item number 2 will now read approve the minutes from the July 13th and July 17th meeting, or that's 2 and 2A.
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings from July 17th and July 13th, select board minute meetings.
A second?
Jessica seconded.
Second, Jessica. Okay, yep, thanks. I missed it. Any further discussion? Any comments? Hearing none, I'll take all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, so it's 4 of us here, I guess. That's my count. I'm not seeing Paul in here yet.
Paul's not here yet. Nope.
Okay, so next item, quick review of the timesheets, the highway report, the transfer station for the employee timesheets, and there's usually just any comments on those. That's a formality that I'll sign off on those later on this week when I get down in the office. Any comments? And then item 4, to review the pay orders. So did anybody have any comments on those?
Nope.
I did have one, Terry, and I think I know what it is, but I just want to make sure. For Brattleboro salvage, is that something to do now that we're working with Triple T, or was that, that's a charge for them moving something?
Yeah, it's for Triple T. I believe that they are probably going to bill weekly instead of monthly like Casella did.
Okay. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, we moving up number 6. So we have Rob Simmons in the meeting here, and he is going to give a quick little presentation of a situation that he has, and we'll leave it at that. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rob Simmons. I'm a resident of Stonington, Connecticut. I've been a taxpayer in Jamaica, Vermont since 1966, when I purchased the former Sage Hill Camp, a 350-acre piece of property that I intended to use for forestry purposes. At the time, I had worked part-time with New England Forestry Foundation, and that was my interest, and that's why I purchased the property. In 1972, I purchased the so-called Rawson property, the Rawson place. And the reason I purchased that property is because the bridge that went from the West Jamaica Road across the river to the property gave me access to the eastern portion of my property, about 175 acres on the eastern portion. And it allowed me to bring timber out across that bridge without hauling it up over the top of the divide of the property. If you understand the property, it's got a ridge line that goes along the top. Half of it's on the east side, half is on the west side. So my whole purpose in buying the Rawson place was to get access to that bridge. The Rawson family lived in the house. I gave them a lease for life, and we got along very well. They eventually passed away. My last logging over the bridge was in 2008. By that point, there had been some deterioration in the northwestern abutment of the bridge, but the logger and my forester checked it out. We talked to the town about it, and we were very successful in conducting the logging operation. There was no adverse effect of the logging operation on the bridge. The bridge had begun to deteriorate several years before. In July of 2010, I received notice that the Board of Selectmen of the town of Jamaica had decided to reclassify the bridge as a town trail. And the bridge was closed with a Jersey barrier, making it very difficult for me to access the property. I'd been engaged in some renovation of the house. That pretty much came to an end. I continued to try to crop the fields, but I have to remove the barrier to do that. And that raises the issue in my mind as to what is going to be the future disposition of the bridge. My wife and I were up at the property a few weeks ago, and we encountered members of the highway department. And I asked them, I said, you've posted it at 3 tons, but it's closed with a Jersey barrier. What's the story about that? And they said, oh, we don't own it anymore. I said, well, who does? And they said, well, the landowner. I said, well, who's that? Well, the guy that owns the property across the river. I said, well, that's me. I have no recollection that I own the bridge. And that began the process of my communicating with your town treasurer, Terry, who, by the way, is a lovely person and very helpful. No, she's great. She's terrific. I thank her very much. To raise the question, who owns the bridge? I believe the town owns it, but I don't know for sure based on what I heard. Who owns the bridge? What's the future disposition? It's not getting any better. It's only getting worse. If the town was to discontinue the trail, which the Board of Selectmen could do, and then quit claim the bridge to me, I would try to repair it for my needs, but I don't want to find myself in a situation where I take possession of a bridge and then the state or the town comes in and says, well, you have to fix it 23 feet across and according to federal standards and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that money. So my alternative in talking to the state about the matter is they will help forestry owners, and I have a stewardship forest. It's listed as stewardship forest. They will help us with temporary bridges if that's what we need. So I can go forward with temporary bridging, but I really think that it would be a shame to just let this bridge collapse into the river. So my question to you is, has the town given any consideration to discontinuing the trail and quit claiming the bridge to somebody like me? And if so, what I would then have to look and see what the liability issues are. And I would also get a local person to come in and assess what it would take to bring it up to standard so that a logging truck could come back across it. And that's kind of where I'm at this point. And I put it to you folks for any questions you may have.
I can answer a few of your questions, I guess, to the best of my knowledge, is that we haven't approached we haven't had any conversation regarding what you proposed. Where the bridge, what happens to it? Not probably since when we actually changed the status of it several years back.
Well,
not to say that we won't reevaluate that or can't reevaluate that, but I think the other part of it too is that there's going to have to be some investigation on our side to see what and how and those types of things that we can do. It sounds very reasonable what you're proposing, because it's, if it is the town's, it's just like you said, it's going to deteriorate, and why not have it be put back to use somehow? Take some creative solutions to try to figure it out.
Well,
But
I'm in agreement with that. If you look at the bridge, it is deteriorating. The northwest piling is made of river stones, and I've got photographs of it. I've been down in there. The river stones have deteriorated, which is why it's tilting down, and that's how it's being degraded. If we get another major flood, as we've had in the past, and I've been through a bunch of them, it may well be that the water will wash those stones out altogether, at which point the bridge will not really be safe even for pedestrian traffic. By the same token, if we get an engineer in and a bridge person in to look at that river stone piling and see if it can be repaired, then I don't know why the bridge can't be used in the future for my purposes. But again, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to spend $50, $60, $80, or $100,000 on a bridge, when in fact I can use temporary bridging with the assistance of the state on that portion of property.
yeah,
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
sure.
Could we forward this information or the question to our town attorney, Paul Gillies, about giving up the trail, or just how we would go about before we have this big, long discussion, not knowing what we're doing, really?
Right. No, I absolutely think that makes total sense.
Including that there's, I think that it's been said a couple of times that the town owns the bridge and owns the trail. Ordinarily, the town has an easement, but doesn't actually own it. So it would be helpful, whatever evidence, documentary evidence that the town is owner of any portion of the parcel, that would be very helpful.
Yep. And I'd like to propose maybe, Rob, that you, make a formal request to, address it to the board, and then we can do some follow-up investigation, as Andy suggests, confirm the status of ownership, right-of-ways, that kind of thing, see what our options are. Also kind of reinvestigate just where we can go with this. I think it's obviously come up several times over the past few years, and just to kind of move through it.
So, Mr. Chair,
yeah,
there's been no second to my motion, so that's off.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was a motion. I'm sorry, totally. I didn't hear it as a motion.
I'll second it so we can discuss. That's fine.
Well,
I made a motion. We include our town attorney in on this.
I would recommend that we hold off spending money on legal fees. If I could just quickly take a look at whatever documentation we have.
I appreciate that, Jessica, but I don't take issue with it, but I appreciate that you offer your services, but sometimes I think that we should, on something like this, maybe consult our town attorney, just because that's the attorney we use. That's the
right, I'm
reason
not
I
saying-
made the motion. If it comes to, we got to take some action, that Paul Gillies is gonna give us some guidance on, especially giving up a town trail.
Agree. So I would say let's collect all relevant information. Let's, as a board, review it. If we at that point want to retain counsel, we can create a defined scope for that counsel, get the opinion, and then take an action. That's all. I'm just saying let's stage it.
Still no second, so.
No, Tom,
I seconded.
Tom
So
second.
we're now discussing it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Paul, you had something to add?
Yeah, on that topic, I'm inclined to agree with Andy about the Paul Gillies. If this goes forward, there's going to be a lot, it's going to be a long process. It's going to take a lot of knowledge of the existing road structures in the town, and all the other things that are going on. So I think starting with him early rather than getting halfway down the road and then calling him in, I'd be inclined to call Paul from the beginning and just start with him and have him guide us.
Makes total sense to me too. Yep. And then we can all, help out, or whatever you want to call it, as we see fit. I think it should start, Rob, with you making a formal proposal. Obviously you have today, but just something as a document that we can forward to our attorney. That's how I would suggest it. But I think there is a motion on the table. So do we have any further comment to that we?
Please restate the motion, because I think it got kind of garbled there.
All right. What is it, Mr. What exactly does he want us to do? The quick deed, I've lost his name here. Hold on a second.
Rob Simmons.
He wants us to consider providing a quick claim deed, granting to him ownership of the bridge and the appurtenances to that is, we can only do that if we actually own the bridge. So that's why I'm saying we should first understand what it is that we own or don't own, and then we can decide whether we hire counsel to do that for us.
So
yeah.
in the motion, Andy, did you make a motion to involve Paul Gillis right now?
Yes, if we're going to listen to the request for the town to deed the bridge to the Rawson property to Mr. Simmons, that Paul Gillies be included in on it, that he gives us some guidance on that, or we call him about it at least. Maybe he'll say, that's my motion. If you can make sense out of that, Sarah.
Terry was raising her hand.
Terry, yeah.
Do you want me to put the documents up on the drive that we have in the office? I didn't do that, but we do have a file on this from.
That would be great, Terry.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Especially if it has deeds and all related transfers for the last 40 years. The typical if we have it.
What it is the documents from the to reclassify to class 4 road. And then I believe Mr. Simmons, was there a suit against the town or a?
No, if I could speak to that, on April 19th, 2010, I received a letter from Paul Gillies, who I've talked to and had some communication with. And by the way, he's a real expert on the issue of roads and trails. And he sent me a letter, which I have here, saying that they were going to downgrade the Class 3 road to a trail. And so I understand the status of it. I understand why the Jersey barrier is up there. The issue that I had with the town of Jamaica was that when I lost access to 50% of my stewardship forest, I received no reduction in my assessment. And so I grieved that to the listers, and the listers denied my grievance. So I grieved it to the Board of Select, or to a special committee. They denied it, so I grieved it to the state of Connecticut, and they upheld my grievance and said that, in fact, by denying me access to the bridge, 50% of the property was no longer economically viable as a stewardship forest, which is what I had been doing there for 20 years. So no, I didn't sue the town. I had an option of going to court. I decided not to go to court. I didn't want to go to court. I didn't want to get involved in a complicated, expensive legal debate, but at the same time, I didn't want to pay full taxes on a property where I had been denied access.
All right, thank you. I think we do have, hang on, I think Andy's motion is on the table, and we're getting into a very lengthy discussion that's probably, quite honestly, way above all of our heads. And that the motion on the table was to initiate or call Paul Gillies and make him aware of the situation and let him be our advisement on exactly where and how we proceed with this.
Right.
Not that Jessica and or Terry couldn't get the information ready for Paul.
Sure, that would be certainly helpful.
Okay.
Terry.
Well, Paul's familiar with it already. I remember.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if I was on the board then. I couldn't have been, but maybe. But I remember the tax thing and all of that. But anyway.
There was also one a couple years ago too. We went through it again.
There are two of them, because when you did your reappraisal under Vermont state law, when you do a reappraisal, you're able to go back to ground zero, and the listers put me right back up at the top of the list. So I went up and I grieved it, and we had a very nice discussion. People came out to the property. I walked the property, showed them what the challenges were of running a stewardship forest on a property where you can't access 50% of it in a reasonable way, and they decided in my favor, which I very much appreciate. It seems to me that over the longer term, if in fact we can reach some agreement on the bridge, all of this difficulty is going to go away.
Yeah, I'd like to call the question, if that's such a term that we can use.
I was just going to call the question.
All in favor of Andy's motion to involve Paul Gillies at the get-go, I guess is the quick summary of the motion. Raise their hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstain? So we have 4 affirmatives and 1 abstain. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Rob. I think actually, Rob, just to quickly tie up the end to this, if you could
I will do that, Mr.
write out formally your request so that we can have that and present that to Paul, that would be super helpful.
I will most certainly do that, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your consideration and that of the Board of Selectmen.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry, did you have?
Can I just ask one question about this? Are you requesting to downgrade the road further, to throw the road up so that the right-of-way isn't still there? And
yes,
so you are not liable for anybody being on the property, correct?
We would request that the trail be discontinued.
Okay.
So as it currently exists, it only extends, according to the Jamaica Road bridge map, it only extends about 50 feet onto the property. So it was essentially, you cross the bridge and there was a little parking space for the Rawson family, and the Public Works Department would keep the bridge clear and would plow out that little space for them. So it's a very limited trail that's on my property.
I just wanted to clarify that, because that would all be part of the whole.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
We will put that in writing, Terry, and thank you very much for your help. You've been very helpful.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. See if I can figure out how to get out of here.
Here,
I can
leave.
kick you out.
Leave. Okay.
You want me to kick you out,
Thanks,
Rob?
Rob.
I
I'm
can
out of
kick you
here.
out.
I'm leaving. Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, on to what was the former number 5, kind of a standing item on our, just a quick update on any town operations, things going on. I had thrown out there just to, and certainly others can add on pieces, just an update of the transfer station. We have slowly evolved into Triple T doing our hauling. As of now, we're still waiting on some of our containers to be brought back. They're owned by Wyndham Solid Waste District and loaned to the town of Jamaica. So those are kind of in rotation with Casella right now. And the concern, not necessarily the concern, but they're the high recycle ones, the taller ones are not a standard issue, so to speak. So they do hold more material. So we're anxious to get those back because as of now, they're hauling our container down to Brattleboro and then bringing it right back the same day, as opposed to dropping off an empty one. There's that's going on. Otherwise, everything else from the solid waste, from the non-organic side has been going smoothly, recycling. The organics has been a little bit of a challenge with their proposal to throw these organic bags into the a regular compactor at the end of when it's ready to be hauled away. The timing of that's not always convenient, and as the first trip that went down, they seemed to have forgotten or said they weren't aware that they were in there. Dan's been working hard and trying to collect these in a way that's not such a mess. I mean, it is kind of ugly up there. Trying to contain all the compost into smaller bags so that they can be moved and then put into the compactor. Many of our residents actually collect it in a container in their kitchen, and it's loose material as opposed to in a bag. Some options is that they could provide, or they could purchase bags, or we could provide bags. So I didn't have a motion or anything on that. It was just kind of an update. There are some challenges going on.
At the last meeting, weren't we going to contact Casella to see if they could continue to do that as a separate contract, and then so we could get back to using the containers we were using? I mean, I was up there yesterday. It's a disaster. I couldn't even dump half my compost in the bin because the things were overflowing. It was flies everywhere. It was disgusting.
So here are the two options, and going back to Casella would probably be the third choice.
Okay.
They will do that. So that's the answer to the question. My somewhat trying to figure this out first is because we had made the move to Triple T and to move away from Casella. Triple T has proposed another alternative where they would actually pick up the containers once a week also, still asking us to put it in the organic bags. And it's additional, it's a $20 per container per week when they pick it up. So we've been, kind of challenging ourselves to try to figure this out without going into that added cost, because that would actually could possibly swing the vote, because we had picked Triple T and it was fairly close. So that would put them over the top as far as the cost. So not to say that that's not an option.
Okay, and then, so the first option is leave it how it is. The second option is go with the new way for Triple T, but the increased cost. The third option is go back to Casella. Do we have a cost from Casella if they were to do it? And then
Casella's cost was I'm trying to remember what off the top of my head.
It's more than Triple T's with the expanded service?
It was roughly the same, I think.
Okay.
Do you recall, Terry? I don't recall. It was a couple $100 and they picked it up once a week also.
It was $200 through Casella.
So $200 a month versus $20 a container. And we figure we send them out once a week and there's 3 or 4 containers. We're roughly the same.
Breaking even, pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. So my suggestion, and certainly would welcome others, would be to play this through one more time for them to pick it up in the compactor. I feel like we're being guinea pigs and have been losing, kind of, it's not a sight to be seen up there.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I think we need to do something.
We're not the only transfer station or town having difficult challenges with this either.
Right, I agree.
Wind
Yeah.
Hall is having some challenges, huge amounts of that coming in. Just a question for Greg. If we did go with Casella, does that mean we have to do the whole contract with them or?
No, not at all. We put out the RFQ to be able to
Okay,
split it up.
that's all.
Whether they come back to us and say that, the price is the same, I don't know. They may say, hey, if you split it up, the price is more, but I don't know that. Paul?
Yes. Does it matter whether it's Triple T or Casella as far as the consumers, the bags that people are putting in? I know right now, like Tom pointed out, it's a mess because everybody's just throwing stuff in raw. Do either of them require those bags, or are they both allowing it to come in raw or
Triple
unbagged?
T is requiring the bags.
Who is?
Triple T is.
Okay.
But
So
that's gonna
Casella
happen.
would just take a can of garbage?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah. Just like we had it before. There were the big bins. You dumped your stuff in, you put a little sawdust on top of it, and you went away. And you shut the lid so that flies didn't get in it. And now it's an open container where it was
It's
foul.
pretty bad.
It was really bad. So, okay, I mean, if we want to wait one more cycle, that's fine. But I think if it doesn't improve, we have to act.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay. Even if it's $200 a month, I mean, I know that's more, but
I mean, that's minuscule, really. I mean, it's it's not a very welcoming experience. People are going to give up on the whole compost thing if
Right.
they deal with the way it is now.
just one other comment, as I was the assistant transfer station supervisor when Judy was. When the compost or whatever it was went into the, this is obvious, it's obvious that June, July, and August, the compactor, I used to go up there when Mark was up there, and I would spray it with bleach with a pump sprayer. So it was so bad for those months that I could understand that the organics is lighting up, in this heat. And I wonder if that will settle down, as it gets cooler. So that, if we have to keep it open still, that smell might settle down.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has suggestions, or I can actually ask Triple T too if they have suggestions on. I'm sure spraying bleach on the compost isn't exactly the right thing.
No, but I'm just saying that's what we did in the compactor. That
No,
Well,
there may
in
be,
the garbage
in the
is
old
in
days
there.
when it was just going in the landfill, yeah.
yeah, but there may be some other solutions that are more organic, that we could keep the flies down and the smell and things like that.
Yeah, this can't be an original problem.
Okay, Terry.
There is some, I don't remember what it's called, but I have ordered it in the past for up
Right.
there, and it keeps the flies down and it smells really good. So I'll look it up tomorrow when I'm at the office and see if it is, I don't know, environmentally friendly that it could go in the compost. But I don't know, is the compactor the same way, stinky flies?
It shouldn't be. There's no food in there, right? There's not supposed to be food.
Well, I don't know. And he may have some of that up there. I don't know when I ordered it the last time, but it certainly made a difference in the smell and flies up there. So I'll look into
Yeah, that'd be great. Find out what that is. Dan didn't indicate that he had anything like that up there, but I didn't specifically ask.
Okay, well, I will see. He may not have any left. So
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was more for a point of discussion, but if someone wants to take action and make a proposal to change now, but that was more for awareness. Any other comments or anything else regarding town operation in general, or Paul?
Yeah, talking about just town in general, I think the prevailing intelligence in the COVID-19 thing is that we're lucky. We in Vermont have worked hard. We've got a pretty good thing. But according to Governor Scott last time, it's coming our way. And so I think I'd like to reinforce that the scheduling and the way it's being run, the way the town office is being run at this point ought to be continued until we get a lot better guidance from the governor. So I've had people say, when is it going to open? And I like to believe it, sometime before 2025. But right now, I think we ought to continue our procedures as they are.
I would concur with that. I mean, there's nothing that I'm aware of that is, all of our functions are fully, we're fully capable of doing everything the way we're running now. There's other than having a coffee break, that 5 people can't come in, but I mean, we can get all the town business done the way it's working right now. So I don't see any reason to change it either. Okay. Thank you. Next item, we're really top loaded here with all these good discussions, conversations. Next one is for proposals or a proposed, discussion and action on a proposed plan to address speeding and safety issues in town. And I know a lot of great ideas came out last week. We've looked a little bit more into some of those. We've kind of gone a little bit and started on some of those. Andy has initiated with the sheriff's department to get the speed sign back on a rotation. I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen. They haven't confirmed a schedule for us yet. Tom's got his hand up, and he had also thrown on some, maybe Tom, if you want to bring up.
So first I want to thank Joel. We had a conversation. He sent me some information about some signs, some radar signs that we had talked about putting in town. I did a little more research. And I actually found signs that were about under $3,000 each. And there's no continuing cost. It's a standalone thing. It's solar. So if we were to put 2, one at each end of town, and if we were to decide to put one on Depot Street and one on Pikes Falls, we're talking 12 grand just for the equipment. And then we'd have to obviously work with the state to figure out how they would, I don't know how they work to say, okay, you can't put a sign up here, you can't put a sign. Obviously Depot and Pikes Falls are our roads, so we can do what we want. But they're self-sufficient signs. And I think that this is something that's really important. We obviously have an issue in town, and spending $10,000, $12,000 for the safety of people and children in town is important. So I would support, looking into this and considering it and seeing what we could do to find those funds.
Oh.
Yeah, I just got a letter that I contacted Megan Brunk, who's at the AOT. And this morning I got a letter from her that it might be informative to read it to you, because I just got it today. Hello, Paul. I'm looping Mark, this is Mark Pickering, into this conversation as he has a wealth of knowledge / experience with towns requesting traffic calming measures. The first step is to make, she writes make establish, I think she meant make sure or establish, there is actually speeding problems and not just a perceived speeding problem. Having a little tiny writing here, or really old eyes. Having a speed cart out that records speed for a week or 2 or tube counters will give you an idea of what traffic is doing. You can contact Wyndham Regional Planning Commission for assistance with this. If it is determined that a significant number of cars are traveling at much higher rates of speeds, then it would be worth investing money. At the end of the day, the best way to slow traffic down is through enforcement. The challenge here is towns having limited budgets and police having limited hours available, but any blue light presence is a help. Then she gives me a link to a study done for the town of Middlebury, and there's another link to a study that was done back in 2006 in Windham County. We had talked about lines, about the horizontal lines in village settings. I got today, what I can do is forward this letter to everybody so you all have a copy of it, and you've got the links if you want to go ahead and use that to chase down. The town can also request a road safety audit report if there are specific locations of concerns. I'm pretty sure that Pikes Falls Road is a federal aid RD, so I don't know if that triggers the need for special review or not for changes. And then she asks if Mark has any other ideas, and I haven't heard from Mark yet. Like I said, I just got this morning. So we're chasing down it. I had originally requested discussion about the rumble strips and the speed lines, the horizontal lines on the road. And those are some of the questions I sent her, and this is her response. So we're in the process of finding out what the state AOT is, what their investment is in this, and what they think we ought to do, and what we can do versus what we're not allowed to do. We have to have somebody else do for us. So that's kind of where we are with chasing down the state stuff.
Yeah, and there's going to be a component of this too, where we're going to have to make sure that what we put up on Route 30, I mean, like you said with the state, just doing some adjustments to any other signs that may be, where they get located and where they're going to be most efficient, and changing any kind of existing signage to lead into these areas and things like that. So, and I've looped back out to the road commissioner too, just to get a lot of people involved on this, because it's important, and it's not going to be an overnight solution, but we do need to keep moving quickly.
Well, I think too, I'd like to say the last time they put that cart down on Depot Street, they kept moving it around. Then at the end, they lost all the data. So we had it there for like a month or 6 weeks, and we got nothing out of it. So if we're going to work with Windham County Sheriff to do this, let's make sure that we have it in one place, we get the data out. They move it somewhere else, we get the data out. And then we put on Route 30 too, because I haven't seen it on Route 30 for a really long time. And I think if you put it at the bottom of that hill where everyone's coming off the hill, I think you'd get it would be shown as a hot spot. Because I've been at the post office, I know Joel will attest to this too, coming down that hill, trucks are flying.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I guess, Andy, I know that you had some other.
Jennifer
Yes, I can speak to a little bad news about the speed box. It right now is incapable of recording speeds. That option is not available. She didn't tell me why, but right now it's incapable of doing that. If they're not up here already, I haven't been up Pikes Falls Road. I've been at work, but I did put in a request there's 2 of them. And I said the first spot would be up on Pikes Falls if we had any say in it. And what else did I want to tell you? Okay, something else that has really changed in town because of the flood. At the end of Water Street, the firehouse end, the sheriff told me that place where they used to set up radar at the end of the road there, got more convictions in the state of Vermont than anywhere else. Anywhere, not Windham County, anywhere. And then when it got rebuilt, it's unsafe for a sheriff to sit there. That's part of the reason our revenue was down, if I had to guess. Another thing is, the sheriffs at our last town meeting said that they would like to think that the reason they're not issuing so many tickets is it's been a presence for a number of years, and at least the locals have slowed down. And another thing, just a thought concerning the signs, and I've got some other things to report about the sheriff's department and another agenda item. The money that might be spent on those signs, or if we're thinking of spending some more money, maybe we up the contract for the sheriff's department and buy some more hours, because really they're now only here 8 hours a week or something like that. But yes, they used to write an incredible amount of tickets, especially in the winter, because they would get people coming up and down. This one sheriff went on and on, told me all about it. Told me they like to catch them 15 miles an hour over, but they'll do it less if it's a slow night. He showed me he'd written $3,200 worth of tickets down in West Townsend before he came to the end of my road that night. And, just so that's changed, if that makes any difference at all.
But
especially on the revenue end. They can't sit there now. That when they rebuilt the road, there's a sharp turn there where it was gradually pointed up the hill before. But anyway.
What about hanging out in the firehouse? I mean, they're just too visible there, so people slow down?
Oh, they sit there. I just don't know. And another thing is there's not as much traffic with this pandemic. I mean, I think what Paul said, Paul's letter was very helpful to me sitting on this board. Those things that Wyndham Regional, those things you run over, that make your tires click.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think they count cars and measure speed in between the two things. But me or Joel could ask about that at a transportation committee meeting, I think. But yeah, so bad news about the radar box.
Yeah.
I could ask if that's going to get updated, but that's not going to help us in that aspect. But it still issues speed when you go by it.
Could we look to rent one from somewhere else? That
We could buy one.
I mean, we could buy one, or we could rent one and look at doing something like that. We don't have to work with the sheriff's department necessarily. I mean, I know it's free if we did, but if this is really important and we need to get that data for the state, then we should do something. I mean, rather than sit around and go, well, they can't help us, so I guess we'll do nothing. I mean, I don't think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I think I concur. We definitely would be nice to have some data. I mean, then we know, and then we also know where to point our resources. I think they're fairly expensive, those mobile carts. I mean, they're 10 times what you're talking about for the other sign.
They're about $8,000, yeah.
Yeah.
8 or 10 grand.
But still, I mean, maybe look into renting one. I think there's multiple prongs here.
One of the things that's going to be presented when I talk to Mark Pickering about this is what is the source of information that they can then rely on. If we have one of our own, they may not be able to use that legally to go forward. There may need to be some sort of a who knows, certification of some sort. So as I'm talking to Mark, I'll try to get a sense of if we had one of our own, would it make any difference, or would they still have to come up with whatever plans they have? We need to have to, especially on Route 30, but also Pikes Falls, we need to follow whatever it is they want us to do to make sure that we're in a position to take advantage of what they can do for us.
Okay. And with the grooves, Paul, I mean, that's just another remedy that they want us to get some data before we look at grooving the roads and such?
No, the rumble strips, okay, was another idea I asked some questions about. And I have two thoughts on that from Keith. There's different kinds of rumble strips. I'm thinking of the kind that cut into the pavement as opposed to the kind that are going over, because then it fouls up the plows. He points out that when you have the indented rumble strips, water collects there, and over time, it begins to eat out underneath the road and causes potholes. So there's no right perfect answer, but I think that one's preferable to having any raised bumps, because then it fouls the plowing. Having said that, back to getting word from AOT.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, and while we're on the topic of AOT, by the way, there's a question came up somewhere along the line, and I talked to Keith. The plan is to pave the entire paved section of Pikes Falls Road and this side of South Hill. And we'll try to get the other side at another date. But there was a question about exactly what we're paving. Starting here at the end of the month, they're going to be paving all the paved sections on Pikes Falls and the section on South Hill and the little piece up on Wyndham.
And to segue a little bit, certainly not away from this conversation, but just to add to that, it's more likely going to be toward the end of August that the paving's going to start. That's what Keith just told me a day or two ago.
Okay.
I mean, partly they're all weather dependent. The weather seems like it's been great, but as soon as you get even like a 15-minute downpour, they got to turn the paving off.
Oh.
But anyway, so it just happens. So, but that's an aside. Yeah, so I mean, it's some great conversation. I don't know if we want to. I do feel strong too that we need a little bit of data. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around. But if we want to jump in on getting a sign, I don't know if we want to jump in at 12 grand, because I think I like Andy's idea of if we threw 12 grand back at the sheriff's department, we could probably get that in return in fines and get people to slow down. So,
can the public say something? I've had my hand up. Travis has his hand up.
Yeah, I certainly will, Jennifer. Thank you. Because I think we're at that point. I know I like to run the meetings where we have some public input at each one rather than waiting to the end. So I'll definitely open it up. And I see Travis's hand up also. So I'll start with you, Travis, because I can see your hand. So, and then I'll get to you, Jennifer. Thank you.
You're muted.
You're muted, Travis. Travis, you're muted.
Press your space bar.
There we go. Now we can.
Sorry about that. Forgive me in advance. This is the 4th year that I will have spoken at the select board meeting about traffic and speed control issues in town. As has already been noted, the last few years, we did request that data get accumulated by the Sheriff's Department and their speed control box. For whatever reasons, they weren't able to retain that information, which I understand. But it's super frustrating to find out 2 years later that we still have not requested for them to come back and reset that up and get the data. Again, this will be the 4th year that I've gone to select board meetings and talked about speed control. It's also worth noting that the suggestion that I have made at all of those previous select board meetings has not even been brought up at any of these, and that is removable speed bumps. Now, rumble strips are great. All that does is inform you that you are about to enter a speed zone. It does not force you to slow down. A speed bump does, and a removable speed bump can be removed in wintertime so that it's not a plowing concern, and it forces you to slow down. Now, it certainly is not the only measure that we could take, but I would love to have that be part of the conversation again for a 4th year. As many of you know, I took it upon myself to put in a speed bump on Depot Street 2 years ago and 3 years ago. I decided to take a little break from doing that because of COVID and figured I'd go easy on the town. Having said that, the speed bump works. It slows people down. As far as some of these issues that we're debating, I can certainly understand the need for more data. But I also know, as Paul brought up at the last meeting, which I watched in its painful entirety, that we are still looking at suggestions made by a committee in 2001. Now, gentlemen, I understand that you were not the select board in 2001 or for most of the years in between then and now. But I am going to point out that for 20 years, people have been complaining about speeding in Jamaica, and it appears that not one single thing has been done to curb speeding in the town of Jamaica in that time. Now, that may not be accurate, but that is absolutely the impression that one gets as an outsider on this conversation. Now, the last thing that I want to point out, in the meeting before, there was a discussion about sending out a very tepid letter to overweight permit holders for the town of Jamaica. The fact that that was even a debate is unconscionable. There is zero reason why a select board shouldn't be able to send out a very generalized letter to overweight permit holders, asking them to obey posted speed limits. One more thing, just as a reminder, I was at the meeting when the select board approved an $18,000 paint job for the ceiling of the town hall. I would argue that our children and our pets and our safety and our commerce is significantly more important than the paint job on the ceiling of the town hall. We should be able to find some money to slow people down. Whichever way it is that you gentlemen choose, let's do something instead of just studying it and talking about it.
Thank you. Great, good stuff. Jennifer.
Hi. Everyone has brought up some really great points. Just a little bit. I sat on the Route 30 Commission with Wyndham Regional, Elaine Beckwith and I did for a few years, where there was extensive traffic data collected in our town all up and down the Route 30 corridor. There is a ton of data. The select board did not do anything at that time. There needed to be pressure from the town of Jamaica, as well as in West Townsend, and Newfane, to get V-Trans to make some changes to Route 30 to slow traffic down. I guarantee the Wyndham Commission still has all of that information. It was also partially sponsored by Stratton because it was such a huge issue. Now, I know that we have to wait on Route 30 for a few things and try to figure out how we get V-Trans to help us. But Pikes Falls and Depot, we do not. Those are our roads. So I think making a decision now to do something on those roads will show the people in the village that the quality of life in the village is worth fighting for and worth making a change. Because our children cannot ride bikes in the village. Everyone wants to know why our village is disappearing. You cannot live in the village with the traffic the way it is.
All right, thank you. Yeah, both, I mean, on it's good. It's, I don't have the right words. So, I mean, it's because it hits hard too. I mean, and there's traffic issues and there's speeding issues in many towns, and there's not a silver bullet. And so I think we're looking at lots of options here. There are some restrictions on even our side roads and what we can do in those roads, because they're, you know, I mean,
The signs that Tom has researched can be put up on the roads. You
Oh,
can
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
You can make a decision today to do that on Pikes Falls and on Depot Street.
I guess some of our conversation is you know, also thinking about where else we can put money and say, okay, let's up the sheriff's department component too.
And the study that was done with the Route 30 Commission was the reason that we had up the sheriff's presence on Route 30 to do the traffic monitoring that they did. And before that, we actually had very little presence with the sheriff. And that was the one thing that we did do, was engage the sheriff and up their hours on the contract. So you can do that on Route 30. That is something that's totally within the power of the select board to be able to make that change without waiting for VTrans.
Mhm.
But the side roads, I think waiting for a whole solution, we're never going to get there. Breaking it down and getting little by little to make some changes is how we're going to be able to do this. To Travis's point, this issue, it doesn't go away. Studies were done in 2001. Studies were done in 2004, 2007. We are still in the same situation. And again, like Travis said, you guys aren't the board that ignored a lot of it, but you are the board that can start to make some differences.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, Tom, what did you get a formal quote for that
No, I
equipment?
went online. This is something if we had a credit card, we'd go buy it tomorrow.
I would move that we get a formal quote on two signs, one for potentially Pikes Falls, one for Depot.
I will do that. I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Sorry,
As long
Greg.
as we understand that
kidding.
No, that's
You're out of order, ma'am.
as long as we're talking, the vote is to get the costs.
To get the
A
costs.
formal
We ought
quote.
not to spend it until we make sure from Pickering that we can do this. We got to remember, Pikes Falls is a Class 2 road. There's different rules than there are for Depot Street. We have to make sure we're clearing them correctly,
And
or you spend the money for nothing.
I concur with you, but again, I'm listening to the citizens here, and I've said this to Greg 100 times before. We have to do something. We're just talking back and forth. 3 meetings ago, we were going to put a stop sign up at the bottom of South Hill. All of a sudden, now we're not putting a stop sign there because, well, we can't do that. Well, I guess I was never in those conversations, so it's kind of like, okay, now we're shifting again, and then we're shifting again, and then we're shifting again, and then it falls off the agenda. And here we are, winter hits, and then, there's not as many people outside, so the issue goes away until spring.
Right.
So it's frustrating. I mean, I'm in the village. I'm frustrated by it as well.
Right.
But the
So
question,
again, the motion is to seek a formal quotation for 2 devices of the nature that Tom described earlier in the meeting. And we can then raise that as an agenda item at the next meeting. And this discussion over the next 2 weeks can also include, and I would resolve that it include Terry, so we understand where the funds would come from in the budget. So that is my motion. If it can be seconded again, so then we can have discussion.
Seconded.
It's seconded by Tom. Joel.
There are 3 signs between here and Bellows Falls. There's one in Cambridgeport, one in Saxon River, and at least one in Bellows Falls. I don't see any problem with having those signs. If you need to get consent, there's no reason why we can't demand consent. And as Travis said before, $18,000 for a paint job, we easily found the money for that. So, I mean, I agree with Jennifer. It's time to move on this. It's just kicking the can down the road for all those years.
Yeah, so we
You'll
have
actually need 6 of them, guys. You'll need one on each end of Route 30. And unless the speeding on Depot Street is just one way, you'll need one on either side, and the same with Pikes Falls, right? Unless you want to just stop the speeding coming down Pikes Falls into town.
Well, the signs are movable, so it's most likely that they would be utilized in a method to try and address speeding and dangerous situations in various parts of the town. So whatever steps we need to take along the lines that Paul stated, which as I understand it, are not terribly complicated, working with the sheriff, working with Wyndham Regional, and with potentially with V-Trans, although not so critically, we can identify those spots and come up with a schedule. It's all doable.
And move them around. Yep.
We're still discussing the motion. Are you moving that we get costs for the kind of movable radar speed signs that we had on Depot? Or are you talking about the kind that are fixed in place, like the ones they have going into other towns that flash at you when you go over the...
I sent an email out this morning with a web link and some information. So that's what she was talking about.
I still don't know what she's talking about because I don't have that open.
The flashing.
Yes, the static signs that when you drive in says going too fast.
All right. So those are less
They are
movable
effective
than the
in
one
going
on a rack.
down.
Yeah, but those are...
I took a quick look at it, but they can be moved. They're not on a wheel,
Right.
but they can be moved relatively easily.
Mhm.
They're not designed to be necessarily permanently fixed.
They have U-clamps. You clamp it to a pole. You can unclamp it and move it to
Certainly, it can always be moved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully by
But I'm
us.
going to call the question if that's such a thing again. I think we've had a very informed debate on this. So the motion's on the table for Tom to get a formal quote on these. And we'll move forward to getting them. We got to start with the quote. We got to make sure that where we pay for them and all that good stuff. And it's seconded by Jessica. So,
Yes.
First by her, second by me.
oh, sorry.
For
Yep.
those watching.
My motion included bringing in Terry about, with respect to budgeting.
Correct.
Exactly. All in favor? Tom doing the research and on moving forward with getting 2 of these signs.
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
1 opposed. So we had 4 affirmative, 1 opposed. Motion passes.
So real quick then, I know still on the same topic, but Travis talked about, I know we talked about speed bumps. It was last year, the year before. I know there were the pros and the cons, and maybe that's something we need to revisit again.
Yep. And the stop sign is still out there too. I mean, we're seeing what can be done on that. Because there's,
Yeah.
changing the signs is a bigger deal than just going and digging a hole and throwing a stop sign in.
Of course.
And just,
And the speed cart moving around every year. There's better and worse speed carts, whether they collect data or not, but we've had that in here too, and we'll try to get it as often as possible. So
I appreciate the concern from the 2 citizens who we're taking all this action for. I understand it's for more people than that, I would hope. It's illegal for someone to put a speed bump on Depot Street with a bunch of dirt. All right, that's all cool and everything, but it's illegal. Please don't do that again. And I, for one, I've got a vehicle that will not go over a speed bump. I don't know if anyone else does, but low riding cars going to the park, they may have issues whether they go over that thing half a mile an hour or not. They cannot clear a speed bump. But I'm just saying, I don't want to have to come in and out of my shop 5-6 times a day, hit 20 speed bumps in one day to get to my damn driveway. I'm totally against those on Depot Street. As a citizen, I'll abstain as a board member.
yeah, Bob.
But please don't put any more dirt in the road.
I kind of agree with what Andy's saying, but then I disagree on the speed bump methods. If you take a ride on over on Guilford Extension Road, over by Memorial Park in Brattleboro, they have 2 wide speed bumps that can be taken up in the wintertime, and it's a residential area to control traffic. I see nothing wrong with that. I can't see why they can't use that on Depot Street. But Andy, they're low enough where your car won't hit bottom.
I'm going to swing over there tomorrow and take a look at them, Bob. I'm away home from work.
Okay, Travis, I'll take one quick comment, and then I'd like to get on to, certainly not dissolve this
Right.
conversation, but to get on some action items and get some other things rolling. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to all of these issues. So there, my statement, and on to you, Travis, trying to run the control a little bit of the.
I'll try to make this real quick in regards to Andy's comment about the speed bump. I didn't bother bringing this issue up this year because obviously everybody's much more concerned with speeding and BLM and various other things. But I've also come to the select board repeatedly to ask them what they're going to do about the sand that they dump on Depot Street every year. I didn't move that sand there. That's your sand. I picked it up. I cleaned all of Depot Street and the sidewalk in front of both my house as well as the church and the library for free. I removed your sand. That sand is yours, and that speed bump is your speed bump when I made it. I didn't take sand from my property to create it.
Thank
Now,
you.
that's a whole separate issue that I'm not even going to get into, but I just wanted to be super duper clear. That's your sand.
Thank you. That's
Next.
okay. I mean, I think this is certainly an item that we're all taking seriously. And I think Jennifer may have said, I mean, we weren't the board before, but we are the board now, and we're maybe I apologize for maybe it's taken a few weeks, but we're on it, and I sincerely thank you for your feedbacks.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
We do. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
very much so.
Okay, so the next, there's too many things on here.
HUD.
Next item, yes, Chris, for an update on the communication union, and then Tom will follow in on the wireless network update. I know there had been a proposal. Well, anyways, take it away, Chris.
I had previously asked the select board if I could put a flyer in the tax bill mailing as a way to reach both resident and non-resident homeowners, but I'm having second thoughts about that. I had expected to get a package of flyers from the CUD, but it turns out we'd have to print our own, which would involve some expense and some taxpayer paid labor, which really is illegal for the town to expend. And even if it's not much, it's a bad precedent to set. So I think we better pursue a different approach. And along those lines, a different approach I would suggest is that the select board appoint a broadband committee for the town. A number of other towns have broadband committees, which are separate and independent of the communication union district. And a duly constituted broadband committee then could spend town funds, if we could spend some of the planning commission's reserve to send out flyers and skin the cat that way. So if the board is willing to consider that, I'll work up I'll go through recruit some members and then work up a resolution for you for your next meeting. And there's a second thing that I would like the town broadband committee to undertake, and that's to conduct a bandwidth survey. Unfortunately, the state and the Federal Communications Commission are getting all their data from what coverage, what bandwidths are available where in the towns and in Jamaica in specific from the various internet service providers. And in the one case, in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund program, the FCC allows established companies to challenge what the FCC believed the bandwidth coverage was, and as a result, all of the areas in our town which were eligible because of low bandwidth got eliminated. So no funds, no RDOF funds can be spent in Jamaica as a result. And the COVID broadband initiative is pretty much along the same lines. The state got its bandwidth information from the internet service providers, and according to them, all but 2% of our town has adequate bandwidth. And this is in such stark disagreement with the WRC survey results that I question it. And I don't think we're going to be able to argue the issue with the state unless we do our own survey and figure out what bandwidth is really where. I think we can do this on a volunteer basis. It's not going to involve any money. And so I think that's a project, another project a broadband committee ought to undertake. So I'd ask the board to consider that, appointing a committee. There's one other item of business that the Deerville Valley CUD undertook of note at its last governor's board meeting. Heretofore, we had determined not to participate in any of the public-private partnership options for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction until we saw who won, and then try to approach them from a position of strength to see if we could team with them. And we were strongly advised by Representative Laura Sibilia, who is a representative for one of the other districts, not ours, and is the head of the joint information technology oversight committee in both the House and the Senate, which has oversight responsibility for communication union districts, that we should join a team that's headed by the Tilson Company. It includes Green Mountain Power, several of their supporting organizations, and also the Northeast Kingdom Communication Union District and the Southern Vermont Communications Union District, which is basically Bennington. So we flip-flopped and decided to join them. It's taking Representative Sibilia's advice on face value. She obviously knew a lot more than she could say, so we just followed her advice. So I'm not sure what this portends, but it is, I guess, a significant occurrence. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you're looking for action on forming a committee to draft up a survey, or?
I want a committee to work on the town broadband issues that's independent from the CUD. And if we're independent, then there's no constraint on what money we can spend. We also have another issue, I think, which is to find out what our real broadband needs are. Rather than take Consolidated Communications and Comcast word for it, we ought to do it ourselves.
So
I think we're being diddled, basically. So
yeah,
I think we should know. I mean, I guess I could use the speed arguments from the last topic. I mean, we ought to know we ought to know our broadband speed ourselves and not take other people's word for it.
So Chris, are you proposing to come back to the select board in 2 weeks with a formal resolution, what you'd be looking for in terms of us appointing this committee and what the committee would undertake?
Yes.
I resolve to, for the board to entertain a motion to come from Chris at the next select board meeting.
Second.
Discussion.
yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Christopher, when you talk in terms of the assessing our broadband, the width options we have in Jamaica, is that something that we can do?
Yes.
Maybe I should suggest Tom, or do we need a contractor to do this?
No. What I would suggest is that this committee ask for people, use the Jamaica Journal and our Facebook page to ask people to run a speed test and email the results to the committee or to maybe the planning commission. If we got enough measurements, enough dots that were uniformly distributed over the town and a sufficient number that it's a statistically valid sample, we could connect the dots and basically make contour maps of what bandwidth is where. And then basically I'd send this to Rob Fish and tell him this is the real data, not the stuff that you're hearing from our ISPs, and use this for the various state programs.
I will attest that I get 60 at my house, and I get
Well,
10 up, and I test it often. So, because I'm always at work, working from home. So, I mean, so it is available, but that's not to say that someone 2 houses down can't get that. You know, I'm just saying that's what I get.
Oh, well, Brian claims he gets 100. I think
You
people along Route 30 are set, but if you get more than a couple of miles off of Route 30.
Right. It's the last
That's a quirk of exactly where Brian lives, because I forget what he said, what the device is called. It's literally 10 feet from his house.
Fiber thing, yeah.
Right.
The fiber cabinet.
Right.
There's a motion on the table. I think I mean, it's a formal motion, but I mean, it's more of a recommendation. That's not probably the right word, but to turn it back to Chris, or maybe Jessica can restate the motion, but.
Sure. A motion that the select board look to Chris to come back in 2 weeks to make a formal proposal for a broadband committee of the select board with its first 2 tasks enumerated, and that the board be ready to take an action on it.
And Tom had seconded.
One second.
Yep. All in favor of that, casting that off to Chris. Chris is more than willing to take up a lot of stuff, but all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That's a unanimous. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, let me know, let anybody know on the board what kind of help you need. And we want to help you and support you to move this forward. It's going to be great for the town.
Well, I'd like to ask other people in the town to help, but it's a popular topic, so maybe we'll get lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely encourage you to be more diverse than just the planning commission and the select board, to get lots of other people involved.
Got a neat new motto: slower driving, faster internet. That could be like a motto.
That's our motto.
Guys just can't be satisfied.
Yeah.
Am I up now?
Yes, Tom.
Yeah. So 2 things to talk about. Just to let everybody know that Southern Vermont Cable consolidated merger went through. It is now official. And Comcast has released dates for they're switching over their customers throughout the region. Most of Jamaica is going to happen the week of October 23rd. So that will impact the town office and the town hall and the library and anyone in the village here. So that's the Route 30 corridor. Most the other ones either the week of the 16th or the week of the 23rd of October. So just be aware of that. It's a change in service. It could be a change in cost. See what happens. Second, I've spent the last week turning up 2 wireless hotspots in town. One of them at the town hall, which was from a grant by the Vermont Department of Public Services that Chris had initiated. Thank you, Chris. They came and installed that last Tuesday, and I worked with a gentleman. Of course, he wanted to install on the outside of the town hall, and I'm like, you can't do that. And he's, oh, it's a perfect spot right there. You know, I'm like, no. So it is inside the wood, but the wood is generally not a barrier to wireless signal. I've walked around the central village, and it's there. I also hooked one up and made it very similar at the town office. Both are called Jamaica Hotspot. They do not have a password on them. When a user attaches, they will have to go through a splash screen where they agree to terms and conditions. And after 2 hours, they will be kicked off the network and they'll have to re-register. So it stops people from saying, oh, I'm going to cut off my cable and I'll just use the town's. So because it has to re-register regularly. So those are available for free for the public to use. And, you know, they're piggybacking on the town's internet. But each connection can get up to 5 megabits, which is adequate for streaming or checking email or whatever. So it's just a service that the town is offering, and see where it goes. But so like I said, the one location's in the town hall that is pretty much in the center square of town. it doesn't quite make it down to D&K's. The other is in the parking lot of the town office and back in that area, kind of up Pikes Falls a little bit there too. So again, just look for it's called Jamaica Hotspot, and it's like I say, it's not a secure network. And I've built security on both devices. Well, the one device at the town hall doesn't matter because that's just a standalone internet. But at the town office, I've done some fancy security stuff to make it a more secure thing. So I'm confident that we're safe as far as how it's configured there. So.
And the limiting of the streaming, which I thought was the next one.
Limiting, that was my biggest thing. He didn't want us to set up that splash screen. And I'm like, you know what? I need a way people are just going to get on this and stay on it. And it's not secure. So I was uncomfortable with it and I just did it. And I didn't really tell him I was doing it. I mean, he was a consultant that came in for the state. He never said I couldn't do it. He's like, we don't recommend that. And I said, well, I wasn't comfortable with just letting people be on it as long as they wanted to be on it. I also made it so someone couldn't come in and grab all of the bandwidth. So each connection is limited to the 5 megabits, which is still adequate to stream, but someone just can't come in. I'm going to torrent and download a bunch of stuff and just sit there for hours and hours and hours. That's not the purpose of these. These are for people who potentially don't have, the resources to have internet, high-speed internet at their house, or the ability to, because of what Chris was talking about, the last mile. I also, when we talked about, because we were going to do this at the school, and I talked with the director, I forget his name now, from the school, and they are also going to be setting up a public wireless hotspot at the school as part of Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. So they're redoing all of their equipment, and they didn't really want us to get involved in that, and that's why we moved away from the school, but they're going to be setting that up, he said, this summer sometime. So that'll be a third hotspot in town where people have the ability to get internet for free. And again, if you have a student or something, you can go there and access the internet. So,
Tom, is Jackie going to put a little blurb to that effect in the next newsletter?
I have written it up here. That's what I was looking at because yes. So I've written something up to put in the Jamaica Journal, and that will be in that. And because I'll be honest, no one's accessed it but me. I've gone up. If you see me around town in my car with my laptop, that's me like testing stuff or changing configurations or something. It's just no one knows yet, but I think as people find out about it, there may be people from the state park who need to come up and check email and stuff like that. I mean,
I've known people in town who have difficulty going online to renew driver's license. Like there's a real need for this. I think if it can get pushed out through the newsletter.
Yes,
and
definitely. I wrote up the article yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. Wrote that up and sent it to her yesterday. She's aware of it. It will be in the newsletter on the 1st. And just a little side note of that, if anyone has anything they need in the newsletter, for the August 1st issue, please send your information about upcoming events or things like the wireless hotspots to jamaicajournaleditor@gmail.com. And we'll get it in the newsletter for August 1st, which is next Saturday. So the sooner the better. We're running out of time.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Next item, and I didn't forget you, John. I know I was going to sneak you in, but I'm going to go in with item 9. We're at discuss the reopening of Pikes Falls. As most of you, I guess, are aware, we called an emergency meeting last Friday, or a week ago Friday, so 10 days ago, after there was this scare of a potential COVID outbreak in the Manchester-Londonderry area. And based on what we were seeing in some of the other towns and some of the other public spaces, we decided that it was in the best health interest to temporarily or indefinitely close Pikes Falls. And the decision was made that we would reevaluate that at tonight's meeting. So that is what is up for discussion right now.
I move we reopen Pikes Falls for recreational use.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes. How do you plan on managing the traffic issue?
The same way we've managed it before this happened.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's my take on it. Yeah, the conversation, and if you read the minutes from the other meeting, that none of that was discussed in the other meeting. That's not the reason we closed Pikes Falls. The reason we closed Pikes Falls is for health reasons. And without the health
concern, but it's not.
It is a concern. I don't question that.
Have we not heard from adjacent property owners saying that their property is being violated by the people who are parking on their private land?
Maybe, Paul, but that's not part of this emergency
That would be
That
another
was
agenda.
part of this emergency meeting that we would discuss that,
Right.
reopening it
That is
or
correct.
not.
It certainly can be brought up as a separate issue. It's not part of the reopening of the of Pikes Falls at this point, because that's not the reason we closed it. Any other comments? All in favor of, I'm
Nope.
sorry, Hazel,
Hazel.
yes, go ahead.
Let me,
You're on mute, Hazel.
here you
Is
go.
there, oh, unmute, sorry.
No, you're unmuted. You're fine. You're fine
Okay.
now.
Is there a limit on the number of people that can come into the state park? Because I'm seeing this flood of cars, all with out-of-state licenses, going into the park, and then they come shopping in the general store. And if we're talking about health issues, this is a concern.
It's certainly a concern. I
Yeah.
don't know of a limit. It's
I do.
really the state. I don't know what they have for limits there.
I believe it's seven. It initially was 25%, and then the state changed it to 75%. So if you actually go in the park and ride your bike around or whatever, or walk around, there are still day use people in there, but there are campsites that are vacant. It's not packed. I mean, in past years I've gone in there and there's people on top of each other. I mean, every campsite is full. It's not the case this year. It is less dense, and the state park is just following what the governor has said they can do.
Yep.
So I mean,
That's
we don't know
definitely a concern, but not part of this issue either at this point. I mean, certainly an important concern though.
Yeah.
So the
And-
motion's on the table to reopen Pikes Falls. Do I hear all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. So 4-1, the motion carries. Pikes Falls will be open. Andy, can you instruct just kind of let the sheriff's department know, and then this will be
Yes.
kind of a segue for your next part too.
And maybe later I'll speak to what interaction they may have had with, during the closure, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, I heard that people were up there using it even during when it was closed. So
Of course.
yeah,
It's hot out.
today was hot. I'm sure people were up there today. It was so hot, you know.
But maybe when the chair feels it appropriate, I discuss the position of liaison to the sheriff's department.
Yeah, I was going to segue into that right now anyways. It's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, just as soon as we had the emergency order, I contacted the sheriff's department, and they went up. There was some discussion about with the dispatcher whether they had signs. I won't get into the whole thing, but they ended up coming up with a bunch of Windham County Sheriff's Department no parking signs. They installed them. I went up and took some pictures, sent them to Greg. Now, as far to answer one of Paul's questions, he asked what a directed patrol was. It was included on a directed patrol, and I learned something. I know the state police do that, but that means that they're going to sit at a place for 20 to 30 minutes. That's a directed patrol by the sheriff's department and the state police. But so Saturday, somebody, maybe Greg, contacted me. There was some problems. I guess I didn't witness it. I relayed them to the sheriff's department. There was no sheriff in town that Saturday. He said there was one in Vernon and they would go up and check. I don't know what happened, but I talked to a sheriff yesterday and he really didn't know that was going on, our sheriff in town. And I was a little, kind of like found that hard to believe, but he was going up there to sit in the last part of his shift. So he went up there to park yesterday. And that's all I have to say about the Pikes Falls situation. I don't know how much enforcement was given there, but I could find out. But anyway, I heard through the grapevine that people were parking there coming in from the back. I kind of expected that, but I don't know what happened. I didn't see. So anyway, my wife has been contacted on Facebook. People have asked Greg to ask me to call the state police or the sheriff's department for different things, and that's not my job as a liaison to the sheriff's department. I guess it would be contractual issues, or if we wanted the speed box put somewhere, or we wanted them to do some other things that the select board wanted me to relay to them that I'm not an extension of any law enforcement around here, especially the sheriff's department. I have no no power there. I did when I was health officer. I had some police powers, which I rarely ever used, but not now. So people were concerned about camping on the West River, and they wanted me to call the state police. I told them, you call them. You call if you see something you think's out of whack, feel free to call law enforcement. But we're not law enforcement, or I'm not. So that's all I wanted to say about that. If it's a town issue, I'd have to tell you the select board. I can't act on my own. That's all I have to say, really.
Yep, and it actually is probably, I mean, it's really better that way too, that there's a direct contact, that it doesn't get translated by passing it through one of us. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to the conversation by the time they should call directly if they've witnessed something or if they have some concerns.
And I just want to add that I feel me as a board member, I can call, not representing the board. If I saw something, I can call as a citizen to the state police, FBI, whoever I want. Has nothing to do with the select board. And believe me, not on my regular calling list to call law enforcement. So, as we as select board members are citizens too, and we could call the police if we thought we had to, but not representing the board.
Tom?
Yeah, and I wanted, a lot of people come to me because I'm in the village here and ask me that, hey, what's the select board going to do about X, when it's really not a select board? What Andy's saying, we're not law enforcement. If there's someone on private property, then, or trespassing or breaking the law, then people can contact the police and have the police come down and check that out. Obviously, as a citizen, if I'm concerned about something, I'll do that. So, but yeah, a lot of people find me. I guess that's it. I mean, I know I sent something out to the board about, the graffiti that was on the road. And I apologize because I was under the impression that we had contacted somebody last time when actually it was citizens who had done that. And so it was my misunderstanding. But when I contacted the person back who asked me who they needed to call, they had said they had already called VTrans and then the things were taken care of. And I know, I overstepped that. I guess I misunderstood. I thought, like I said, I thought that someone from the select board had contacted to inform, not to make a decision about if we're removing it or not, but to inform VTrans that there was graffiti so they could come down and assess it based on their rules.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Tom, for the update on that. Yeah, I think this is where I just hopefully not getting too far out of order here with trying to keep the agenda in line, trying to congregate little or collect different things that are somewhat related. John, I'll go to you to, I think I had said I was going to put you in at 7A. just a brief update and all the work that you've been doing. I know we're kind of getting long here in the meeting, but just on all the sign concerns in town.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, board. I'll just make this real quick. I've been communicating back and forth with Eugene's team. The current status right now is that on the Old Muzzies, the plan that they're working on with their marketing team is to create 2 signs, one in the front of the front above the front door, and one on the side facing Pikes Falls above the door. That would be within the ordinance of 32 square feet. It would pretty much say the same amount of stuff that they have on the sign that they currently have, but it would be more in keeping with what a store sign would look like. So it would be roughly a rectangle about 10 feet by 3 feet 3 inches thereabouts. So, but that's where we are with them. You're not going to get him to do much more than that. The ordinance has a number of, let's put it this way. If you look at section 115, 120, and 130, you'll see that's about the best we can do right now. We could go ahead and start fining him, but the fine is minuscule, and it's just going to, to use a street term, is just going to piss him off. And I just don't think we want to go that route. He owns a pretty large company. It's a bedding business. He lives up on Sage Hill. Having lived in Wilton and seen what wealthy individuals can do, they can tie you up in court. You can take that ordinance apart. It's probably not in the best interest of town to go that route, but to work with them the best we can, which is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and I think John's been, involved in this almost every day, quite literally, and in conversation with him, which I think is a huge progress. They're working together on it, so
yeah,
it's falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Greg. Just so to understand, he owns both buildings. He's renovating right now Astas. The plan is, from what I can gather, that's going to be a restaurant and a bed and breakfast, but he's looking for a tenant. And then I don't know what his plans are for the old Muzzies. Not quite sure. But
some retail places,
he doesn't want to put a name on it because he has no idea what it's going to be, and you can't blame them. And I don't know if you want to have a massive for rent sign up there. That's not what he and his marketing team came up with. They wanted to create some excitement, and like I said, I simply went back to him and said, look, if you're going to create some excitement, what you need to do is at least, instead of what you're doing right now, which is teasing people, you need to really give the people an idea what it is you're intending. So you go to the website, you get some artist rendering of what you have in mind, you collect information about people, and then you keep them posted on the progress, instead of this crazy thing where is Jamaica, and you get nothing back in reply. So he understood that, his team understands that. So I've been going back with his head of operations and his marketing team. Because what he's done is he owns one building and the other one is held in a corporation. And when you have a private owner, as some of you may be, there's blurred lines between a company and what a private individual does. We don't have to look very further than the White House to understand that. So what he's got is he doesn't really care whether he owns it or whether it's his own business or it's owned by a corporation. He has his company working on it. And so I'm dealing with his internal staff at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Paul, this relevant? Obviously. Thanks.
Sure. John, when you sent out the information to us, you made a point, I think, that seemed pretty valid in the letter. How does what he has on the Muzzy building differ from a billboard as opposed to a sign advertising a business?
It's a really good point. It is in the, I checked with, and Greg, this is to your question you asked me in the email. I did check with the attorney at the organization that you mentioned.
At VLCT, yeah.
Yeah, and basically what he has right now on those three signs can be construed as a billboard. So that's the idea, is to get rid of those three signs, and I suggested to them, look, if you want to put a sign up like the one that's in front of the yoga studio or Ski and Sport, which is smaller and similar to the one you have at Astas, that's fine, but you can't use the building as a billboard, and he understands that. So that's where his marketing department is working on a sign that would be more in keeping with a sign that looks like a storefront sign that would go one in the front and one on the side. But you understand that right now he doesn't know what the building's going to be. So you either have a massive for rent sign, which isn't very attractive, or you have what he has now, which is R&R, the best is yet to be, and the website address, and that's what you'll have. So, and he's looking for somebody to lease both buildings at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe he should put up a for rent sign. Maybe that'll move the
right.
Right.
Look, I guess the thing is, if you want to, take the time to really go through the 16 pages of the ordinance, and I understand, you guys worked on this, put it together, but having been a CIO for a large corporation, I can tell you one of the things that you find is until something is really tested, you don't really know what you have. Mm-hmm. And so what you got right now is you've got an ordinance that it's got a lot of detail in there, but it's really not well designed in terms of defining what it is you want, which is what you want on a store is the name of the store. What you want on the sign is the name of a store. It doesn't say any of that. So that's the challenge you have, is that this guy can take you to court and tie you up, and you can have nice legal fees, or you can work with the confines of what you have and try to, work with his common sense, because he does live in the town up on Sage Hill. He actually loves the town. He's a tough guy. He's got an attitude, but he loves the town. He wants to do right by the town. That's why he bought those 2 businesses, and he wants to bring some excitement into town. So it's best to work with him with what we can within the confines of the ordinance. And hopefully sooner than later, there'll be occupants in the building, and then we can actually have signage which is appropriate for what is in the building.
Yep.
Can I just really quick, because I did spend a lot of time with the ordinance.
Sure.
I disagree that it was poorly drafted. I actually don't think it is. I think it strikes the tone that the town of Jamaica wants in terms of zoning versus no zoning. Specifically in section 115B1, they're in violation of off premises since all of the signs are consistent and relate to advertising, which they're actually not advertising because they don't have a business, it would be for Astas. So I'm not quite sure on what basis they have signs for the Astas building on Hank's old building, and we can discuss that. In paragraph C of that same one, I just want to make sure that they're intending to make those signs no higher than 20 feet, which is, I guess, makes sense to me. There's a reference at the end to the definition of off premises, so that will help us kind of understand as a board the fact that the signs that are on Hank's building are off premises. And then in my separately, why are the signs not taken down? So if they've acknowledged that they're not in compliance, why I'm getting complaints from people in town, why aren't they coming down? So did you get an answer from anyone at his business? I don't know why he's not, since he's the owner of the Astas property, why he's not addressing it himself. But is there some plan for taking them down?
So Jessica, would you like me to write him a letter and tell him to take the signs down, and then you want to go to war with him?
Can you just answer? I'm sorry, John. I'm trying to keep it quick, and we can talk about this separately if you want. I just want to know, is he saying that he's going to take down the signs?
He's taking down he will be taking down the 3 signs on the old Muzzies and replacing them with 2 signs, which is what I said earlier. The signs in front of Asta are not coming down because they are in compliance with they are 32 square feet, and they are no higher than 20 feet off the ground.
So
all they did was replace the old Astas sign, which I was supposed the Astas sign was within the confines of the ordinance.
So is he taking down now the signs, or is he not?
He won't take them down until he's not going to take them down until he replaces them.
Okay.
Now, if you want me to write him and
No. Let me just, if I can, just because I want to be. I know that Greg we're trying to get through the agenda. So just, I think that a lawsuit in this case would not get a lot of traction because the fines are so small. So there's no real damages. So I just, we're not in a big commercial area where he could be losing a lot of money or where we could be imposing tremendous fines. So this is really just, I agree with you. It's a relationship thing. And the ordinance does inhibit it does say that what he's doing is not inconsistent with our town rules. So I'm just suggesting that.
Jessica, you're probably right, but it's vague. And a good attorney can rip it apart. Trust me, I've been there. So you have a point of view, another attorney will have a point of view, and then you can hire an attorney to go ahead and go after him. I mean, that's the option. You either work with him or you go after him by writing him a note and saying he's got to take them down. And I've chosen to try to work with him in the best interest of the town, in my opinion. If the board feels otherwise, I'd be happy to do otherwise.
Yeah, we can take a motion. I know John and I have had a lot of conversation on it, and Tom and I were involved with drafting the sign ordinance, so we've got some, a little bit of background on it. And I've been very supportive of John's working through this and working through that relationship. I get frustrated with it too. I mean, not with John's actions, but just with the progress and the pushback that we're getting from them and not taking them down. But I think it's my personal opinion, and I'll open it up to everybody, but is that this is the correct approach.
Andy, bear in mind, I mean, this is no huge revelation. This guy can watch this whole tape. Everything we're saying, he can, this is public information.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that we don't speak out of school and offend anyone. And I said this at the last meeting. I mean, the ordinance is the ordinance. Jessica has a point. If they wanted to talk about it off camera or whatever, I don't know if that's legal, but I'm getting uncomfortable talking about this fellow or listening to us talk about him in varying, putting him in a different light, lots of different light, good and bad.
Agreed.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you, John, for the update.
Just to say, John, too, that sign ordinance, we borrowed it and we talked to Dover. It's Dover's sign ordinance. They originally wrote it. We went to them and said, hey, can we base ours on yours? And they said yes. And so we changed some things in it because it's a different world down there by Mount Snow, but we kept in a lot of things like the feather. We don't like the feather signs and those types of things. We banned all that stuff, but that's where that comes from. So if you, just for information's sake. Move along.
Okay, thanks. On to the next item, number 10, update on tax sale and authorization for the town to purchase unsold properties from July 21st tax sale. This was probably a little retroactive, I guess, and I guess Terry, maybe you can explain the process. I mean, obviously, there's properties that go up for tax sale for unsold or unpaid taxes. Historically, it's been in the month of May. That was delayed a little bit because of COVID. So this took place last week. And the strategy that the town has had for this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we did put the tax sales off for a while because of COVID. And they were held last Tuesday, and normally what happens is the board sort of votes to buy any properties that don't sell to the public at a tax sale. And so what happens is it takes it off the delinquent list. I mean, it's sort of money goes out in tax sale costs, but then comes back in because the taxes got paid. And the same holds true if the town buys it, that the taxpayer still has a year to redeem the property. So the town doesn't actually have ownership of the property unless the property owner does not redeem in the 365 days. So there were 3 that went to tax sale on the 21st. 1 was sold, and there were 2 unsold properties. 1 on Henderson Road and 1 on Smith Road. So Paul was at the tax sale that day, and he has been to many other tax sales that we've held. And so I guess I'm asking the board to buy those properties. The attorney sort of held everything in limbo until this meeting, so that I'm not really sure. Paul, do you remember what he said? It just kind of held until you decided to either yes, you wanted to, or no, you did not want to.
Right. I explained that we needed to move, the board needs to make the decision, and that he would, put it on hold until the board acted tonight.
And so the upside, as far as I understand of this strategy, is by us purchasing them, it acts like anybody purchasing them, it engages the next step of the process so that it allows the legal system or whatever, the process to flow through to be more forceful to start this timeline, I guess, as far as them paying their taxes. Because if we don't do this, they just sit out there as being outstanding. Is that correct?
Correct. And these are two that have been through this process before, at least once, if not twice. One of them has 2 years of taxes due because they went to tax sale 2 years ago, but redeemed. And in the meantime, another year's worth of taxes came due. So if the town doesn't purchase them, then that means when this next tax due date comes around, they will then be 3 years delinquent, and it'll bring them probably over the $10,000 mark. And I mean, I just don't, not only could the town use the money, but I don't want to see anybody get in so much trouble that they really truly do lose their property to this process. So that's about all I have to say. I mean, there's a few other ones, but they have payment plans and they've consistently, made payments on there. So that's why they did not go to tax sale.
What role does our town agent play?
Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Move over.
What does the town agent do? Like he Andrews.
He is like tax appeals. So if you appeal your assessment, he basically he's in on those. He's not part of the tax sale process.
All right. And legally, you have to suggest some action, right? As a treasurer?
Well, I mean, I can suggest, but it's you as the board that needs to make the decision. The last probably 4 or 5 years, the board has voted to buy any properties at tax sale that went unsold to anybody in the public.
Do we need to know how much it is?
Well, I of course didn't bring it home with me, but the one on Smith Road is a little over $7,000 and the one on Henderson Road is a little over $1,000.
Terry, isn't that's a book entry? We're not out of pocket. The town is not out of pocket. Is that correct?
Correct. It's not like we are, no. What it accomplishes, well, there's a couple of things. The attorney that does the tax sales, that's basically all he does is tax sales. It's a separate from the town attorney. It's Kevin O'Toole from Dorset. And so if they go unsold, then he is obviously out his fee. So he's kind of saying, I hope the town will decide to buy these. And then the town would get the interest. So in a tax sale, in order to redeem, you have to pay 1% interest back on the money to whoever buys it. So the town would collect that 1% when they go to redeem the property. I guess the town could say no, at that point you could decide that you don't want to. But truthfully, there's nothing more than it's off the delinquent list for now. And it starts the process of the 365-day redemption.
I move that we purchase the 2 properties.
I'd second that.
The property on the Smith Road and on the Henderson Road, that the town of Jamaica purchase those.
I second.
For delinquent taxes.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Super. Moving on. The next couple are actually, I believe and hope, they're kind of on my list because Brian wasn't able to make the meeting tonight. The first one, number 11, was just to discuss the process to readopt the town plan. The Planning Commission has been looking into this somewhat for the past several years. Back, I guess, in early 2000s, there was a new process or a new checklist, I guess, or a certification process that was instituted by the state to basically show that our town plans were adapted in a proper order. Number of different steps. I think that was shared with everybody. But the Planning Commission is working now in establishing, the long and the short is that it appears that for the past 2 town plan reiterations, we haven't gone through this formal process. There's no legal requirement that we do, but the flip side is that if we don't, our town plan may not hold as much water as if we had. If it is challenged in court, or if there's some Act 250 violation or something else that pops up that's counteractive to our town plan. So
we could lose funding. We could. That's probably the scariest thing. We could actually not be eligible for funding in an emergency.
Right. So the Planning Commission is working through a timeline to readopt or to adopt a revised town plan is probably the best way to put it. There are a number of different things in there that they're working on that are also worth changing since we're going through this process. It will then basically take our town plan and put it as another 8-year term, which it used to be 5, now it's 8. So there's the upside of that. And they're just looking for a buy-in from the select board that we are accepting of this process. There's a lot of certification procedures that Sarah would be involved in. Basically stuff that we've done. It's just a matter of, I think we've in the past maybe, and it goes back, I mean, it's probably past 2 town plans at least, where we haven't maybe dotted all the I's or crossed all the T's. So we want to just make sure that we've got something that's going to be as strong as we can for having a strong town plan. So the Planning Commission was looking for, and I'll make a motion that the board accept the buy-in of this revised process and this certification to adopt the revised town plan.
I second the motion.
Yep.
I don't understand.
Yeah, Paul.
Discussion. Yeah, I don't understand what you mean by the town accepts the buy-in.
So actually not accepts the buy-in, probably the wrong wording, but that we as a select board buy in to accepting this process. Because like before, there's nothing legally that says we have to do it this way. I feel in the Planning Commission's recommendation is that it's in our best interest to do this way. And they were looking for support, basically, to move forward and to put together some timelines to adopt a revised town plan.
So you're asking the select board to support the Planning Commission in pursuing the new town plan.
Exactly. And to use this certification process that's been, I don't know who came up with it, whether it's VLCT or whether it's whoever.
Is part of that, I've been at Wyndham Regional Full Commission meetings, so I should probably know this. But sometimes it comes up for an approval of a town plan for, say, Londonderry or, whatever the commission town might be. Is that part of that process, or is that something that we do anyway?
Yes, that is. But they
That's
can't
part of that
approve it. Yes, and they can't take that step unless we can certify we took certain steps.
Okay.
And so this resolution is support the JPC and their slightly revised plan, and that we support taking all of these steps so that it can be certified by Wyndham Regional.
Yep. And then they will propose a timeline. They want to act as soon as possible, but it's a long process, so to speak, where we have to have a hearing and a 30-day notice and all those.
Okay.
So it's not happening next week or even next month. So Sarah, I see your hand, Sarah.
I don't understand the motion.
So it actually, I'm probably lacking, it's probably my fault that I'm lacking the right terminology. So the Planning Commission is looking for the support, or I use quote unquote buy-in of the select board's acceptance of this certification process to readopt the town plan. That worded differently or no?
I think that's good. So we're basically supporting the planning commission in this process.
Yeah, and there are
Yeah,
some
no.
steps, and it's going to be a little bit of, some work that we, probably Sarah, mostly the work. But it's a checklist. It's a lot of stuff. You say, yes, we sent it to the newspaper on July 31st, and our hearing was scheduled for August 7th. And it's just really documenting all these things more formally. We've probably done 99% of them already, or in the past. It's just that we didn't have it quite documented into this script, I guess. Chris.
The steps are the same as you followed before. What's new is the town clerk has to certify that we followed them, and then we have to save the documents, the various resolutions, the minutes, the receipts of the town plan from our adjacent neighbors, and the certification in case it's challenged in a court or one of the various board hearings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sarah, did you have something else? No.
What's new is the certification and saving the documents.
Okay. There is a motion, and I think Tom, a second.
You said, Jessica seconded.
Jessica, yes, sorry. All in favor of supporting?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, it's unanimous. Thank you. Next one is much more quick. Plan Commission still working on the details for a proposal for community septic and getting everything they need from the state and everything else. So I'll leave it at that. Still more to come.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry? Nope.
All right. I lost I couldn't understand a lot of what you said.
Oh, just on that last one? Yeah. So item number 12,
Right.
an update on the community septic initiative. That was another proposed initiative from the Planning Commission, and they're still gathering details and haven't fully got everything together, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot of pieces and with the state and financing and design and whatever else they're working on.
No question. Okay, no problem.
So the more to come on that. The other item 13 discussed the opening of Jamaica Town Hall for select events, including the Census 2020 training. Normally, this wouldn't be necessary that this comes before the board, other than back in March, I believe that we had agreed when COVID was first running around that we closed the town hall indefinitely for events and meetings. So Caroline Pearson has asked if they can hold some Census 2020 training in the town hall. I believe it's next week, maybe the first week in August. They would be going through their, all the protocols of safe distancing and things like that. It's a multi-day training process, and I don't quite know the number of people, but I thought it was well worth reconsidering and also certainly a good cause. Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned if there's, I wish we had this in front of us is to see what their plan is. We can say, oh, we're going to social distance. We got it all worked out. And then they pack 100 people in there or 50 people in there or whatever. I wish they had some sort of plan that they could have put before us today or even presented to us tonight that says, here's our plan, here's the number of people, here's how we're planning the social distance. I mean, I'm doing this all for the school right now. So,
right.
Everything is planned out. A student asks a question, here's exactly how it's going to look. I'm a little, I understand it's a good cause, but I'm a little reticent to open it up if we don't really know what we're opening it up for.
I don't know anything more than that request.
I think the request is probably a good idea. It's way too open given the current coronavirus situation. We need to have more details.
Yeah.
Given the timeline, I would go on do we want to have them present? Do we want to appoint somebody to kind of be the contact?
I'm the contact because I'm the town hall coordinator.
Okay. Would you be willing to review a plan?
Yeah, so I will call Caroline up and review the plan with her and report back to the board. That's not a
It
problem.
may, the timing is maybe critical. I don't know when their training is planned.
I'll call her right after the meeting.
No, but I mean, they may have their plan, their training may be timed for before our next meeting.
Well, I'll contact the board and maybe we have an emergency meeting or something, or can we do some sort of
Do we
motion
wanna
now?
defer?
Why don't we just empower Tom to
Yeah.
explore it, make a decision?
Agree.
I agree with that.
That works for
I
me.
just wanted to vet that out to make sure everybody's comfortable with that.
That works.
I make a motion that we appoint Tom to be the point person to work with Caroline to establish guidelines for proper social distancing and whatnots for the Census 2020 training.
And empower me to make the decision if we let them do that.
Right.
The answer
Okay, I'll
still may be
second
no.
that.
If she comes and says, oh, I got 200 people, I'm going to be like, no.
And then report back to the board next
I
week.
will report back to you guys.
I
Second.
second that motion.
For discussion, I saw Sarah waving her hand there.
Well, I
Sarah?
think 3 things were said. First one was Greg said, I'm going to be the point person. The second thing is I have the authority to make the decision if the event moves forward. And the third thing is that I will report back to the board.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So motion's on the table, seconded by Jessica. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstention.
Unanimous?
I'll abstain.
Abstains? Thank you. The other was, and I shared this, I believe, I'm sorry, what?
Sarah.
Oh. Sarah,
Can we find out about cleaning too? Because they should be responsible for cleaning up after too in the town hall.
Do we have a regular contract that we give people that includes that?
Yeah, I'm working from home Wednesday, it looks like, so I'll come by the town office and figure
Yeah,
that
we
out.
may try to
I'll
be-
contact her before that though and have, yeah, they should be filling out, I mean, they should have insurance. It should be like a rental, right? Or are we not, that's my question, I guess. Is it a
Sure.
rental?
Yes,
The rental
I asked
space
that
since
earlier.
2020, or are we just saying as a public service for the census, Town of Jamaica is offering the space and then someone trips and bangs their head and then we're liable? Just saying.
I think we can certainly waive the fee as a public service, but they should, live by the same guidelines and probably even be more diligent in their cleaning process.
Yes, and insurance.
Right,
Buy insurance.
for the same
Yeah.
guidelines, that's what I meant by the rent,
Yeah,
including
I mean,
insurance.
For any event at the town hall, you got to buy was it $110 or $300? I forget. That's why Jamaica Community Arts bought our own insurance, because we can get it for like significantly cheaper. So, okay, I will talk with her and try to figure this out.
Okay, thank you. The other was to hear the request from the Jamaica Old Home Day Committee on a reimagined distance event. They presented this to myself and I believe a few other people on the board through a letter. I, just be in correspondence, bringing it toward the board. My personal opinion, I'm not quite sure we need to act on this, but they did suggest possibly the volunteer efforts of the town trucks and things like that, which, that's why it's on the agenda. So
From a funding standpoint, they do get $2,500 from the town every year.
absolutely, yeah.
Or if they want to buy, and again, it's a pallet parade they were talking about. So, I mean, from a funding standpoint, I don't think we have any, we funded them.
We've already funded it.
We've already funded them. I mean, from a support standpoint, of course, yeah. But I talked with some other people around this, and I really feel, in the letter it said we really want the select board to support it, and that's fine. But I really feel that the Old Home Committee needs to talk to community members and see if there's interest. I don't think that comes from us. That comes from, Karen or Ann or whoever on that walking around town and saying, hey, would you want to create a pallet? Because it's really going to be very disheartening if everyone's kind of like, I really don't want to do this.
Right.
And now I have to do this, else I'm going to, and then it's like 5 pallets around town. So I really think, they need to promote it. And I talked to Jackie about, having them put something in the journal now, because we're talking a month and a half away, to say, hey, this is an idea, contact Ann, and I'll call Ann after this too and recommend that she does that, but just so that they're really the ones driving this. The select board, we can say, yeah, we support it, and we'll maybe give some truck support or something. Really, it's their thing, and again, it's going to be very disheartening if people don't want to be involved in it, and then, you know, the town is just kind of like, okay, we have a couple of pallets here and there, but really it's not wise for them.
What kind of truck support were they asking for?
I believe I mean, it was very loosely worded, but I believe they were, they didn't formally request, but they're like the possibility of the town going to pick up pallets. You know,
Okay, I remember
running down to
reading
RK Miles with the 1 ton and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or WW. I got a letter. A lady came by and gave me a letter.
Yeah, that was Ann Brower. Yeah, she came and gave me a letter too.
So I totally agree with what Tom's saying. I didn't know really how to comment on this, but I didn't have to because Tom said it for me. I totally agree with that. Of course, we would, you know, whatever they want to do. I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm not going to parrot what he said, but they're funded, and a big challenge for Jamaica Old Home Day in some years has been participation.
And volunteer. Yeah, I mean, people have to volunteer, and if there's not that support,
Right.
because of COVID or for whatever reasons, yeah.
I mean, if they're asking us if those guys can run up to Manchester and back, I wouldn't want to be a bad guy and say no. I mean, if they can do it, sure. But other than that, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I think Tom's right. They need to generate the excitement around it first.
So is someone going to talk to? I'm surprised no one's here tonight who's on that committee.
Right.
Because they were all. I mean, these letters came out. They hand delivered the letters, and then no one shows up. It's like, okay.
Yep.
So someone should. If I'm in the store, I'll mention it to Karen. Or if I see Ann around town, but if I don't, if someone else sees Ann around town, pull her aside and talk to her about it.
Yeah. Perfect. We're certainly not opposed to the idea.
Not opposed to the idea, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, more of a point of interest, I guess, a point of information. Bob, I know you've been sitting there patiently, and there's some stuff that I didn't throw on the agenda, but we talked about, you brought it up last time. And I don't know if I'll let you take it away. I don't know if you formally have some recommendations or suggestions or where you're at.
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of an update. I went into the town office 2 weeks ago, and with the assistance of Paul and Terry, and I've got the plans of the firehouse lot that we established when we built the firehouse and stuff. So I have this here, and I can kind of lay out where the cisterns may go. I also heard from Washburn Concrete. Again, 2 weeks ago, I contacted them, but they didn't send me anything until today on prices of a tank and multiple tanks and stuff. So what I'm going to do is read through all this information at my leisure, and working with Paul and anybody else who wants to be involved, and put a little packet together and share it with the board first, so that we can bring it up at a future meeting before we go any further with it.
Perfect.
On costs and what direction we probably should go with this.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. That sounds like a good recommendation.
Okay. Because as I said, I've got some background stuff that I've looked up and found regarding to what we've done in the past, and you know, some of the recommendations and stuff and people to contact. So that's going to be an ongoing process, but I will definitely have something more concrete for you at the next meeting. The next issue I have is, again, thank you from Terry. We have a regulations from the town of Stratton on their false alarm. It's actually called the Stratton Permit Handbook, and it's on the private fire alarms and security gate systems ordinance. And I like it. I like to use it as much as a boilerplate for us, just substitute our name in their place. But there's some other items in there that I like to delete out. So again, I'm going to work with Paul. Maybe I get Jessica in this because it's somebody who can type this up formally if you're willing to. I can meet with you at some point, show you the document. Paul has a copy of the document he can share.
See if they can get a Word version rather than a PDF. They probably have it.
I know. It would be nice if we had the Word version, because I was thinking typing all over again.
I can convert it at the
Yeah.
office from a
Yeah,
PDF to a Word, so.
Right, Terry can convert it, but after it's converted, it usually requires some cleanup. If they have a Word document, that would be ideal.
Yeah, or even if it's Adobe Reader, because I know Adobe Reader you use to edit.
Send it to me, Bob. I can convert it too.
What's that, Tom?
I have that stuff, and I can do it at work, and it's.
Okay, that would be help.
Just send it to me tomorrow, and I'll have it to you guys.
It'll come out pretty clean, Tom?
Oh yeah.
Good, excellent,
Yeah, it's
wonderful.
pretty clean. It's sometimes you have to go in, but I found Adobe Acrobat's pretty clean.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 90%, probably 95%.
So that's fine, then that's easy.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's not like the old days. where it's like,
Yeah, right.
And that sounds like a great proposal. I mean, we're going to have to walk through the process of adopting an ordinance, but to have a draft of that available, I think that makes sense for the fire department.
Before we go in too much further in this, are we all in agreement that the idea of finding people for multiple false alarms is sitting well with the select board?
It is from my point. I mean, if that's causing angst for the fire department, that's counterintuitive to what they should be doing.
Well, it
Yeah,
causes angst. It's also a safety factor. But the Stratton was finding they give you 2 free ones in a calendar year, and anything after that, they start finding you like around $200 an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And from the fire protection concept is we don't have a lot of people. We can't afford to lose a truck to an accident on a false alarm.
Or just wear people out driving up and down the road.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, we can discuss as a select board, you know.
Sure.
I can make proposals and.
Exactly.
But what I guess I'm asking is on the first blush, everybody's in agreement with us to go ahead and pursue it.
We'll put a draft, we'll get the draft up and then give it to the board and then go through.
Okay.
I think it's a good start, and I'll work on it with Tom and Jessica, whoever wants to be involved.
I'm interested.
Last thing I just want to bring out quickly, 2 weeks ago, I took a ride up to Hamilton Falls just to see what kind of traffic issues were up there. Charlie Peck, who lives up there, you people may be familiar with Charlie. He used to be on the planning commission, good old friend of mine and stuff. He happened to watch your last select board meeting, and he saw where I brought up the issue about Hamilton Falls, and he said he's been fighting this thing for almost 20 years up there regarding to the public coming in and just parking and throwing garbage all around and stuff like that. When I was up there that week, there was only, I counted maybe total of 10 cars altogether. There was probably 4 or 5 cars parked, 1 or 2 cars in and out when I was going in and out of the place there. So, but I didn't walk around to see what kind of mess, but I understand that a lot of places that people are going to from out of state are leaving garbage everywhere. So I don't know what the state park has done on their end, but I'd like the town to look at the Hamilton Falls up on Windham Hill Road, or back Windham Road, I should say, for the simple reasons because you've got property owners up there and people are, parking their cars all over the place up there and probably trespassing and leaving any mess and stuff. I don't know. Again, I just took a ride up just to do a quick check to see what was happening. Same as I did on Pikes Falls Road. I was kind of pleased to see all the sheriff's department signs say no parking up there. Maybe that's what's got to be done up the other end of Hamilton Falls. It's a back way in. It's almost, it's a long trip to get up there from the back side, I'd rather prefer to have people go into the park in there and take the trails to get up to the Hamilton Falls. So that's kind of my feeling. It's a safety issue for the fire departments and all the rescue personnel to go up there and rescue somebody. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks. Give me my email address, Bob. I'll text it.
My email address?
My email address. You're gonna send me my email.
Yeah, I'll give you my own personal email address. That'll be okay.
I'm gonna text you mine. It's pretty simple. Or you can.
Yeah, it's Bob Stomsky at Gmail.
And mine's tom.tolbert@jamaicavermont.org. I just put it in the text to you.
Okay.
So just send me that document tomorrow, and I'll check it out. Or tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Just quickly, I didn't hear if Andy was also okay directionally with us considering a false fire alarm ordinance.
I really would just go along with the people that know a lot more about it. That being the fire department and for our first responders.
Perfect. Okay.
Bob, did you want to say something about a tree that you had a problem with?
Oh, I also made a recommendation at the last meeting regarding to a popple tree that's on the corner of Depot Street and Water Street. And I remember, Greg, you said you would talk to Keith about.
Yeah, and I apologize. That slipped my mind.
That's okay. I understand. It's hard to run a meeting and take notes. I run into that same problem too. But I believe that tree is still there, and it's basically a sight distance issue because you cannot see cars coming down the hill from the church as you're looking over the bridge to pull out.
Okay,
Other than that,
noted.
things are good.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I did have one other point of information. I know I wanted to share at that last meeting, but I've been speaking with George Mora, who is the chairperson of the town of Londonderry, and I know as our group here, and Andy and I have talked about it a little bit, and Paul, just as possible concept, I guess, of a shared health officer between several towns and moving us into more of a community, not a community, but a regional effort. So she's approached their board and they're open to that idea. I wanted to share that as a point of information to you guys, and also to look for feedback, and also to, I don't know if it's an endorsement or whatever, just to proceed with trying to figure this out a little bit. I guess Kelly Pajola has also said that there's some state statutes that were revised a few years ago that would allow for this. So I'm just looking for support to continue this dialogue.
You have mine as a past health officer.
You certainly have.
It can't hurt to look into it. It may be a good thing.
Yeah.
I support it.
Yeah,
No.
great. Thank you.
Jackie was going to put something in there too, Greg. I don't know if you want to contact her about that this position has been open. Sorry, meeting. I'm sorry, but that this position has been open for some time now, and you know that we're looking for somebody, and see if, much like John took the position of the sign administrator, see if someone is out there that want to be a health administrator.
Yeah, continue to ask. Yep, I will get back. I'll get to
Get back
Jackie.
if you could before the end of the week. Yeah.
Yep.
I move we adjourn.
Public concerns.
Any other public concerns?
Any public left?
I'm upset because you guys haven't cleaned the brush off the road on Water Street. I'm going to make that a public thing. I've asked a few times, and it's all this rotting brush, and no one is coming. I mean, someone needs to get a broom and sweep it all off. It'd take 10 minutes. But
Okay. Any need for an executive session? Like I've mentioned, I'm going to start to put that on there. I don't have any. It wasn't on there for any particular reason, but it's always there if we need it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
If not, Andy, Tom, everybody's motioning to adjourn.
I second the motion.
Second. Thank you. Meeting all in favor. We don't have to vote. We just have to run away.